Hi there, my name is Shannon, and I'm Willamette Week's music and visual arts editor. I'm talking today with David Walker, who is a filmmaker, comics writer, and co creator of Bitterroot, and also Willamette Week's former film critic and film section editor. Bitterroot recently won the Eisner Award for Best Ongoing Series, and it was just nominated for Best Comics Team by the inaugural Ignite Awards. David, are you doing anything to celebrate the nomination?
No, it's too hot to celebrate right now. So uh, I'll celebrate like maybe I don't know, like as soon as it cools off, I'll have a celebration. But I'm one of those Portlanders who I do complain about the rain, but I don't, but not nearly as much as I complain about the heat. Like the heat is just too much.
Fair enough. What about when you won the Eisner Awards? I mean, especially after getting nominated last year.
That was a really crazy experience because obviously they give the Eisners away at the San Diego Comic Con every year, and this year there was no Comic Con, so it was done virtually, and I was going to tune in and watch it on YouTube or wherever it was, but a good friend of mine called me uh, during the broadcast of the ceremony. So, and he was it was my buddy Jerry Kraft. He was also nominated. So we're just talking on the phone, and like all of a sudden, my phone started blowing up. I was getting these notifications, and I was like, I thought it was an emergency. So Jerry, hold on a second, and I'm looking at all these texts. It's congratulations, blah blah blah, and I was like, oh, I think I we just won an Eisner for something. I don't know what. Um, and it was super cool, but it was also like, as with all things in life right now, learning how to adjust to it, um, in the privacy of your own home, and in a lot of cases, not even wearing pants or anything. So, but it was awesome. It was awesome just because, we were nominated last year, and I really hadn't I didn't give it much chance of winning this year because my hopes and dreams were dashed on the rocks of San Diego last year.
Are there any updates on the movie adaptation of Bitterroot?
Well, nothing that I can talk about, but no, there's actually some really cool stuff going on, and obviously Hollywood, as with everything, is sort of shut down, and things are just now slowly going back into production down in LA, and other parts of the world are filming. Um, and so I get regular updates from the production team, and things are moving ahead at about as good of a pace as things can move ahead. And I think that, it's interesting because we didn't have a summer movie season this year. This is the first time in ever that that we haven't had a summer movie season since that concept came into existence in the summer of 75. And um but because of that shutdown, there's all this backlog of films that haven't come out yet. And and so there's there's a desperation in Hollywood to get back to work because everyone wants to make money and pay their mortgage. But it's also like, oh, well, we have movies to release for the next, at this point, it's a year's worth of movies to release. Um, and so we've talked about that internally. And I've said, I actually feel really thankful that the pandemic, well, I'm not thankful the pandemic happened, but I'm thankful for the timing of where we were in terms of development with it, because we could have taken a serious beating if we were, like, say, deep into pre-production or something like that, and we're just not that far along yet. They're still working on the script, and um, I know they're meeting with directors, and they've sent a list of who they're talking to, and it's like, oh well, gee, thanks for sending it to me. If I say no to this person, what are you gonna do? So, but everyone on the list has been great, and both the directors and the writers, and I'm excited for it because, like, I've been through similar processes before, but never anything this big, and yeah, it's just kind of, it's like a roller coaster ride. It's which sometimes makes you want to vomit.
You mentioned earlier about how hard it is for I think a lot of people to be really productive during this time and everything that's going on. And you're also kind of being pulled in all these kinds of different directions of TV adaptations and film adaptations and long projects that you're working on with other people and these short things that you're doing for yourself. So like, yeah, what are you doing to kind of like um, stay sane, I guess?
Well, I was never sane to begin with. So, um, what am I doing to stay sane? Well, getting back into the groove of doing discombobulated has helped. Um, and one of the things that I'm doing, I've been teaching at Portland State University on and off now for about 5 years. And going back in September, although I'll be teaching online, and I've been really thinking about um, what am I doing for the next generation of whether it's comic book writers or novelists or even film critics, and that's one of the things that excites me the most. And I last year I had my first nonfiction graphic novel come out, which was The Life of Frederick Douglass, and next year I've got one on the Black Panther Party, the history of the Black Panther Party coming out. We're negotiating. My agent and I are negotiating another nonfiction book, and if you had told me 10 years ago that this would be one of the things I'm doing, or that I'd be teaching and that I'd be like doing nonfiction graphic novels, I would have laughed in your face. I'd have been like, well, what are you talking about? No way. I want to write Batman. And now it's like not even close to, the superhero stuff. It's fun, but I'll do in person. I was doing lectures and going to schools talking to students about the Frederick Douglass book. Now I'm doing it all virtually. And it's like 10, 15 years from now, no one's going to remember my superhero stuff. They're not going to remember the stuff I wrote for Marvel or the stuff I wrote for DC, because that's just the nature of that part of the medium and the industry. But I think my Frederick Douglass book is going to live on. I think my Black Panther Party book is going to live on. I think the other projects that I'm trying to get going, and again, it falls into the realm of the two things I love the most. One is comics, and the other is education. And the fact that I've been able to find a way to work in the two, um, that's part of what's keeping me from going completely insane. And um, I'm a dark, cynical, pessimistic person, right? I don't know if there's anyone left at Willamette Week that I used to work with, other than maybe Zussman, or Nigel Jaquist is still there, so they might tell you how bad I was. Um, and now that it's like, oh, now that we're facing the fire, it's like, okay, it's that negative pessimism. I gotta put it to the side. I've got to find hope, and I've got to help other people find it. And I think that as creatives, um, every creative I know is broke right now, and we're freaking out about how do we pay the rent and how do we get through these really difficult times. Not just the pandemic, but this socio-political revolution that's happening. And it's like the creatives are the ones that's going to get the world and society through these tough times. And it's like, okay, you got to put your own depression and anxiety in check for a little while. You got to put your own cynicism in check for a while, and you've got to make your music or make your art or write your books, and know that there are people out there who they need it. As much as you need to get it out of your system, they need it, because for whatever reason they're not able to express themselves other than to listen to an album and go, this is how I feel right now, or read a book and go, oh, this explains what love is to me, or they can read a comic and escape from the reality they face. So I think that no matter how difficult times get, we have to, and I can't, when I say this, it almost sticks in my throat, right? We have to remain positive. We can't give up. And that's the thing that I would encourage everybody to do. And, especially in Portland, you know, because this city itself is going through like particularly rough times, and I'm old enough to know that we've been through other rough times. We've weathered storms, and this one might be a little bit worse than the others, but we'll get through it.
Yeah, has this award season for comics been like validating at all in terms of that like, Bitterroot clearly is reaching a lot of people and resonating with them?
Well, if I say yes, it's validating, I worry I sound like an egomaniac. But it is validating. It's this, the first issue of Bitter Root has someone killing a bunch of Klansmen, like gunning them down. And when we wrote it, we were like, oh, well, I didn't care how people responded. The rest of the team was like a little worried, and I was like, you know what? If people have trouble processing the fact that we're gunning down, the Klan, who cares? They weren't going to read our comic anyway. They're not going to be our friends. They're not going to buy us Slurpees at 7-Eleven. Just let it go. And it's it's interesting because there's so much of what we're writing about and creating in Bitterroot that is going on right now that it's in some ways it's heartbreaking because it's like I would rather look back on racism and oppression and trauma. I'd rather look back on it in a way that it's like, oh, remember when, as opposed to, oh, yeah, no, it's happening right now, 5 minutes ago, So, um, but there's a certain amount of validation, especially, I came into the comics industry late, old. I was at Willamette Week almost my entire 30s, and during that time, I was trying to still break into the comics industry, and really didn't hit my stride till I was about 42 or so. And a lot of people were like, that's way too old," and I was like, "Well, what else am I gonna do? Like this is what I want to do." And fortunately, I quit Willamette Week and switched positions, and then the position I switched to went away, so they didn't have a job for me anymore. So I had to, pull myself up on my bootstraps and do what I wanted to do. So to Zussman and Meeker, I don't know what Richard's doing. Thank you for not creating a new position for me when I desperately needed a payday. Thanks for turning your backs on me. No, I love those guys. They've done so much for me. I can never I can never express how much that job and how much the paper has meant to me, even before I started working there and since I've left.
All right. Well, that's good to